Tēnā koutou te whānau o Auckland Unitarian. Tēnā koutou nā manahiri. No mai, haere mai ki tere whara karakia. A te atua, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. We welcome you into the space made sacred by Auckland Unitarians for 118 years by the gift of not knowing. It is a space made sacred by questions, not answers. It is a space made sacred by a community living into the unknown together, offering support as we walk a path of mystery. It is a space made sacred by morning tea, a time to connect with our visitors and reconnect with old friends as we ponder questions and listen to each other's answers. It is our sacrament of hospitality. Please join us. It won't be complete without you. 13th century Islamic mystic Rumi wrote, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk." That's not a field of answers for everyone for all time. That's a field of questions and people who, with compassion and kindness and an open spirit, talk about things, learn about each other, and build each answer into more questions that can lead them closer and closer together and wider into a beloved community. A spark of mystery lights our chalice, that it might guide us on the path of unknowing. The first time I remember reflecting on the counterintuitive idea that not knowing is a gift was while visiting my father in the hospital. He'd been there for a while, suffering from kidney disease. It had been difficult to watch his decline. He'd lost his appetite. But I convinced him, I now regret having done that, I convinced him to put in a feeding tube over his reservations to give the doctors time to work out an effective treatment. On a visit one evening, he was more alert and engaged than he had been for some time. We had an amazing conversation about the past, the present, the future. I left that evening full of hope that we had turned a corner. I returned early in the morning, only to learn he had died an hour before I arrived. I was devastated and full of guilt that I had not stayed through the night with him. If I had only known. It would take a while, but I eventually came to understand not knowing had been a gift. That last conversation would have been very different if I had known. It would have been shaped by death. Instead, it was full of life and one of my most treasured memories. When I look back on my life, journey, the gift of not knowing has littered the path, but not intentionally. Not knowing is a time of anxiety and stress for me. I do not relish traveling without an itinerary. It is in my nature to plan my transitions carefully when I come to a fork in the road. I try to consider all the consequences of my decisions, both intentional and unintentional. But I learned that life doesn't care about my plans. I guess that's why the Taoist story about an old farmer makes perfect sense to me. The farmer had worked his crops for many years. One day, his horse ran away. Upon hearing the news, his neighbors came to visit. Such bad luck, they said sympathetically. Maybe, the farmer replied. The next morning, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 other wild horses. How wonderful, the neighbors exclaimed. Maybe, replied the old man. The following day, his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses, was thrown, and broke his leg. The neighbors again came to offer their sympathy on his misfortune. Maybe, answered the farmer. The day after, military officials came to the village to draft young men into the army. Seeing that the son's leg was broken, they passed him by. The neighbors congratulated the farmer on how well things had turned out. Maybe, said the farmer. Glancing back on my life, it's clear that the greatest struggles I've endured were not actually from the pain itself, but rather from that awkward, excruciating, silent period of waiting to see what might come next. I longed for answers, which makes it surprising that my life journey would lead me to Unitarian Universalism. Unlike other faiths, we're better at questions than handing out answers. Perhaps some of you had an earlier life in a Christian denomination that required you to be confirmed to be a full member of the church. Part of that process might have been learning a catechism. Catechisms are teaching tools that convey the central tenets of the faith to new and emerging believers. They provide one answer to complicated common questions and create a digestible doctrinal foundation for the faith. The answers are seen as a source of authority, and if they are not understood or accepted, the faith journey of the questioner is expected to involve getting there. The journey is about the answers. The questions just orient the one who wanders towards the conclusion that has already been reached. The only thing worse than memorizing a catechism was teaching it to 12 to 14-year-olds who would rather be at the dentist. To relieve their misery and ours, my co-teacher and I tried a new approach one year. We turned the catechism into a rap song complete with choreography. I wish YouTube had existed at the time to record the youth performing it for the congregation and the Bishop of Puerto Rico who would confirm them. All I could remember of it was the opening line. If you're Episcopalian and you want to be confirmed, then the Book of Common Prayer has everything that must be learned. And the bishop was impressed. When it was time for his sermon, he began rapping it in his strong Puerto Rican accent. That sense of there being one conclusion is part of the reason that catechisms seem to be falling out of favor in modern religion, even if rapped. They're still there, but they collect a lot of dust. Our history is one with many catechisms being written and recorded on both the Unitarian and Universalist side of our faith, but nothing new has been created in a long time. We're more about the questions today. We're more about wondering and embracing the idea that different conclusions can be reached by different people. We're okay with those different conclusions as long as they don't demand that everyone else embrace them, and as long as they lead to lives of service and love. There's a humility in this approach that reflects the sentiment that a fool knows everything, but a wise one knows they don't. Wisdom is knowing that we don't know everything, which is a modern, gentler phrasing of the more absolute sentiment of ancient Greece that says, I know that I know nothing, or the only thing I know is that I don't know anything. That was Plato building off of Socrates. The point being that answers are illusory and limited. It's the questions that last. That there are things we do not knowing is perhaps nowhere more obvious than when we consider our current scientific understanding of our place in the universe. For millennia, it seemed obvious that the Earth was at the center. Then there was the Copernican revolution, replacing the Earth with the sun. Now we know that our sun is just one of billions in our galaxy, and that our galaxy is just one of billions in the universe. Our understanding of time has similarly been completely transformed. Up to the early 20th century, the scientific consensus was that the universe had always existed. Now we know that the universe and time itself had a beginning. In the last few years, we have learned more counterintuitive things. We have learned that the standard model of particle physics that describes all known particles accounts for only about 5% of the energy and mass of the universe. The rest is composed of dark matter, 27%, and dark energy, 68%. In other words, 95% of the universe is in a form we don't understand. All of this is humbling as far as we've come. We have no brighter prospects for a theory of everything than Isaac Newton, who said, I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore, whilst the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me. It's the questions that must be embraced. And not embraced once in a book for all time, but embraced in our hearts and communities again and again. Throughout our lives, we focus on the answers, but they come and go. The answers that make sense in one season of life can make little sense in the next. And the answers that are intuitive for one person are realized only with great struggle by another. The questions themselves present the path toward growth, toward community, toward a realization of an insight or choice that can bring peace to who we are and wholeness to the world. And even the answers that bear those gifts may change over time. They likely will, and probably should, as our lives move through different seasons. What life means at 25 is different than what life means at 75. It kind of has to be. We should expect those answers to be different. And the only catechism that can really guide us is the catechism of one another, the living catechism of community and life together, of our various answers sung together in a common song. In my search to know everything about not knowing, I came across a reflection by Christopher Goodchild in his book, Unclouded by Longing, that I'd like to conclude with. It gives us a unique view of the gift of not knowing. For Christopher is on the autism spectrum. He says, letting go of trying to work everything out in your head can lead you directly into the most sublime mystery of all, your heart, your true self. To open yourself to this mystery, you will often have to pass through the discomfort of the rational mind simply not knowing. What at first might seem like an impending breakdown can easily become a profound breakthrough. This is beautifully conveyed in The Real Work by Wendell Berry. It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work, and that when we no longer know which way to go, we have begun our real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings. Goes on to say, the emotional distress that often accompanies losing your direction in life cannot be glamorized or underestimated. When you are unable to come up with a rational solution to your predicament. However, it is true to say that one of the greatest gifts you have received in this life is the gift of desperation, directly linked to the rational mind, not coming up trumps. In many ways, being in uncertainty and mystery is a necessary rite of passage you must go through in order to enter into the heart of what it means to be most alive. It is a vocational calling for you to invite the unfamiliar. In living your life in this way, you surrender into something greater. Your perceptions are stretched, as is your imagination, pushing the boundaries of what is unknown and unforeseen. The breakthrough experience whereby you move from lost to found is exhilarating. The attachment to the small self is loosened, and an infinitely larger, more expansive self is glimpsed. It is here, in these glimpses, that a startling new landscape, or perhaps a radically new way of seeing, is opened up within you. Here the words of Jesus come to mind. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. To embrace the gift of not knowing is to embark on one of the greatest adventures, and one that is fully entered into will change your life forever. Amen. For your meditation, I'd like you to ponder this line from Emily Dickinson. Not knowing when the dawn will come, I will open every door. Blessed is the path on which you travel. Blessed is the body that carries you upon it. Blessed is your heart that has heard the call. Blessed is your mind that discerns the way. Blessed is the gift that you will receive by going. Truly blessed is the gift that you will become on the journey. May you go forth in peace and unknowing.